What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tribe of Millionaires podcast from GoBundance. I'm your host, Jamie Gruber, and today I had in a member of GoBundance that actually came up through our Emerge and Ascend program, which I have the privilege of being a part of and running. Dave Garpstas. Dave Garpstas is an investor and a realtor out of Lancaster, PA. I think in Lancaster, they say Lancaster. I think it's a just Pennsylvania thing that they do. But man, I'll be honest, Dave and I haven't talked a ton, even though he was in the Emerge and Ascend program and eventually joined GoBundance, and we're there together, but we haven't had a ton of interaction. So I didn't know quite what to expect, but every second of this interview got deeper and deeper and deeper on different topics. And it culminated at the end. I don't even want to tell you because it was so incredible, with him doubting his ability to contribute and then offering up casually maybe the greatest contribution one human being can give to another, and how he came to terms with executing on that contribution. Wait until you hear. I mean, this is like, you got to listen all the way through to hear this story. But we talk about his rise through the restaurant industry, going from a couple to 106 units in 18 months of real estate, his pivot from the restaurant industry over to being a realtor, and how he likes to work with investors and why, and how he overcame some issues of introversion, especially early on as a bartender. I mean, we covered so many topics in this interview. It's just unbelievable to me how much I took away from this. Not that I wasn't expecting greatness from Dave, but he took it to another level. So make sure you subscribe, like, comment on this video. Let me know what you think. But other than that, enjoy an incredible interview with Dave Garpstas. My friend Dave Garpstas. Welcome, brother.
Welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's dive into you. I gave a lot there, and we actually had a little discussion about a little factoid about you that I want to dive into in the recorded portion of this interview here when we get there. But give us your background. Lancaster, PA, is that where you're from or somewhere else? And take us up through today.
Yeah, so I was born just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. My dad worked in the office repair business, sales and service of copy machines, fax machines, typewriters back when they were a thing. And we relocated to Lancaster when I was about 2.5, 3 years old, for my dad to take a new position up here. So yeah, I'm practically lived here my entire life. Always dreamt about getting out of here, but here I am almost 40 years and I'm still here. So
still doing it.
Yeah.
Yep. So tell me about where did you go, like after school, college, no college, kind of take me through your career progression up to this point.
So I had every intention of going to college. I was gravitating towards something in the health sciences or physical therapy, something in that field. And when I was a junior in high school, my brother had opened up a little small restaurant bar, if you will, in the city, Lancaster City, and he needed help. So I was like, all right, I'll start doing that. Worked as a line cook for a period of time. Didn't love it, but it was okay. And then one day, somebody called off. They called off of a bar shift or a lunch service, and I was like, "Hell no! I am not. I couldn't talk like this to anybody back then. I was like in my own little shell, had no interest in being around people. And he's like, dude, I need you. So I went out. Long story short, had probably the most traumatic bar shift of my life. Made drinks that day that I never even replicated in my career. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then I counted my tip bucket and I was like, maybe I could make this work. And then that was it. I kind of got hooked in the restaurant game. I worked for him for a while. And then we opened a bar in Baltimore in 2003. Had that for 4 years. And in 2007, was running that, and then opened a spot back in Lancaster, and then ran that up until 2015. We sold via installment sale. So restaurant was kind of my thing. Never really loved it though. It was one of these things where I think a product of how I was raised was work ethic. I mean, that's one thing my parents preached to us was, you can get anything you want out of life. You just got to work really hard, and I watched my dad work multiple jobs just to kind of make ends meet. Shortly, to kind of digress, shortly after making the move from Atlanta to Lancaster, my dad got let go. His position ended up getting hacked. So he ended up taking upon himself. He started his own business, And, I watched, he had that business for over 30 years, and just unfortunately technology progressed, and his skill set didn't necessarily progress with it, and it became more expensive to work and repair machines than it did just to throw it out and buy something new. And then obviously computers kind of took over everything. So that was one of the things that, and we can talk about that later, but I think that was one of the things that I kind of struggle with even to this day. But anyways, I always thought that I just had to work until no end, and eventually someday things would get better. And in 2012, I met my now wife, and that's kind of when things started to change. I mean, she just a phenomenal woman, and fell head over heels for her, and realized that I wanted something else, and there had to be something more out there. And that's when I started in 2012. We got together, started dating, things started changing internally with what I wanted out of life. And then I was like, all right, I'm just not happy. So I started taking my real estate classes. In 2014, I would work open to close on the bar, run the kitchen in the morning, bar at night, go home at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, do classes, wake up. And for a short period of time, we did a food truck too. So I'd be back to the restaurant at 6 in the morning. But that was 7 days a week, but I was absolutely determined that real estate was going to be my thing, and ended up getting my real estate license, and was doing real estate part-time, restaurant full-time, and really got to the point where I hated going into work at the restaurant, which sounds terrible, but I really enjoy the days that I was getting up to do some real estate stuff. And that's when I was like, I need to make a change. So that was back in 2015 when we sold, and I went full-time into restaurant.
Into real estate, you mean? You said restaurant. Into real estate. You went full-time. Yeah.
Real estate.
Yeah.
And then my wife at the time, we had our first son back. Sorry about that.
We can edit it. My wife. Start with my wife at the time.
So my wife at the time was working in, it was called Discover Lancaster. She basically traveled the country promoting Lancaster as a tourist destination. It was a government position. She had great benefits, great salary. And that's what kind of made us feel comfortable enough. All right, I'm out of the restaurant, not collecting any money at this point.
Yeah.
Just go in it full time. And it wasn't too long after we sold the restaurant, I got out. And when I say sold the restaurant, we held all the financing, so I didn't actually get paid.
Yeah.
So I went from salary down to no money and 100% commission. And then shortly after I made the leap, she went back to work after our second child, and they 86'd her position. So now we had no income, which was phenomenal. But we learned a lot about ourselves. There's a lot to be said about when you're asked to the fire, you find a way to make things work and you perform. Plus having 2 kids to feed, and it was a really tough 2 years of really trying to make ends meet, putting together a plan. I started looking for third shift jobs just because I didn't want to take time away from the family, didn't want to take time away from the real estate. I was like, if I'm going to work, I'll work when people are sleeping, and I'll figure out a way to make it happen. And it was just literally the moment I was about to pull the trigger on trying to find a position, we started to get traction and momentum in real estate sales. She had gotten her license, got into the business with me. And, it was all in God's hands. It's the only way I can put it. And we just gained enough momentum that really just became a distant memory, and things have been well ever since. So.
Wow. Real estate sales have led to investing, correct? What does that look
Correct.
like for you?
Yeah. So 2019, we bought our first rental property. And a lot of that had to do with when I got into real estate, I had a primary focus. I'm not an emotional guy. I can't court people around a house and say, hey, just picture your family here, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I can do it, but for me, it was about numbers. Like if the numbers made sense, it's a deal. And I started gravitating and working with investors. Plus I appreciated that I could get the same guy to buy 6 times in a year rather than once every 6 years.
Great point.
So that ended up leading to me I was top sales agent in our company for a while. It was just small brokerage, was doing a ridiculous amount of transactions, but always felt like, man, I'm on the wrong side of the table with all this. So that kind of led us into making the jump, start buying rental properties. And then really in about an 18-month time period, we went from our first rental property and then scaled up to about 106 doors in about 18 months. And literally utilizing everybody else's, and I hate to say everybody else's money, but understanding the value of leverage really is what it was. So,
wow. All right. Well, we're going to dive into that, the leverage piece and scaling that quickly. But I want to go back to a couple points in your story. First, I don't want to skip over this. The struggle you talked about. You said your father's skill set didn't keep up with, I guess, the technology. I didn't quite understand when you said you still have struggles with that. Is it struggles with seeing your father go through that, or struggles with, I guess describe that for me.
I think a lot has to do with the relationship with money. My parents are very devout Catholics, and they were always at peace with they weren't meant to have money, and that it wasn't important. And my dad always ran his business with the intent that he would provide service. And if somebody came to them and said, I don't have the money to pay you right now, he was okay with it. And it's a very humble thing and I think a very unique way to operate. But at the end of the day, it doesn't pay the bills. But I got used to seeing them as a couple have 100% faith in God, but always had stress around the financial aspect of their relationship. And that was one thing that I think as I grew up, and I'm learning a hell of a lot about this now, going, when you introduced Emerge, and you're forcing me to, not forcing me, you're coaxing people to ask questions of themselves that they wouldn't typically ask. And I'm learning a lot about myself through this process. And I have a terrible relationship with money. I should say.
Sure.
I didn't feel I was worth money. I felt like it was much more admirable to do something for free. And I felt like anybody who had any sort of wealth was probably some sort of a-hole or stumbled upon it or whatever. So I had all these misconceptions of what money was, and it was of no fault of my parents, but that was something that I felt like I inherited just from being, in the household with them. And again, not a bad thing at all how they live their lives. I just wanted something more, and I didn't want that stress hanging over my head about money.
It's funny, the relationship with money thing. Like I feel like I've gone through breakthroughs and then stagnation, and I'm in that stagnation a bit. I feel like right now. I share this with my pod. I had the corporate job. Everyone who knows my story that listens to this by now. I had the corporate job, made a nice, multi six-figure salary. Left that corporate job on the promise of, I'm in real estate investing. I'm doing other things. But I've in the 9 months or so since I've left my job, my income has come right back up to where I made what I made at the corporate job, which is great. I mean, I'm grateful for that. A lot of people would say, man, you didn't take a dip down. Like, actually, no, I'm making with the activities I do pretty much what I made there, but I feel myself settled there. That kind of that internal thermostat that we have, like, that like I know what my upper limit is now, and I'm going to have to get uncomfortable to break through to what I think I'm capable of. So to your point about having a bad relationship with money, very similar. Devout Catholic parents, I don't think they repelled money, but frugality or saving was always looked down upon, right? It was always like, oh, cheapskates. Oh, they got all this money, but they're not willing to X. And that stuff it resonates with me. I know exactly what you mean. I'm still always changing my viewpoint on money. I guess that helps me with Emerge. Like, I have to say it out loud, so I tell myself as well as everybody else, what this is all about, what I've learned from GoBundance members. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that. That's hugely impactful. On the bar, the first time you went to the traumatic experience of serving drinks way back when, and then you saw the tip jar. So I'm assuming that experience, and maybe speak to the introverts out there, that experience probably opened you up a little bit to the concept of being uncomfortable to some extent. Yeah. How does that show up today? Is that a part of life? Is that a transitional part of life, or are there things that you do intentionally now? I mean, you're part of GoBundance. There's interaction. You're an agent, even though it's with investors. You found kind of your niche. You still have to interact with people. And to your point, like being out there and all of this stuff isn't really your thing. How do you overcome that? Or that's not the right word, but how do you manage your way through that sort of natural, maybe introvertedness? And tell me if I'm saying that incorrectly, versus the need to have a level of extroversion or whatever to exist in the world that you do.
Well, I realized I had a lot of internal self-dialogue. I didn't know that back then. I was only motivated by the money. And then obviously the more I got behind the bar and around people, the more experience I got, the more comfortable I was. And I started to realize that my uncomfortableness came from things that I was telling to myself, that, people enjoy talking to me, that I actually knew how to make a drink after a while. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. And I think that, that pertains to any sort of career path. Like in real estate, for example, when I first went to my first listing appointment, I printed out probably an entire ream of paper of comps and evidence and data as to why their house could sell for X, or maybe it'll sell for this. And I sat down at the table and I'm going through all this stuff. And thankfully it was with a family friend. So I was a little bit more at peace, but I left that conversation and I was like, holy hell, they don't care what I know about real estate. All that matters is they know, like, and trust me. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, that my entire my hesitation had always been, and my reservations have always been about needing to know all the answers, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And that honestly, when it comes down to it, people just want to know that you're trustworthy and that you're going to do what's in their best interest. And it doesn't matter what you know. And I think once I came to the conclusion of that, everything was better. I mean, that first bartending shift, people would come up and they would be like, can I order whatever? Like I had somebody come in and order an old fashioned. Very rarely made them back, the type of bar I was in. And yeah, sure, I'll get it for you. I ran over. And this is back when we used to have a Rolodex. Back with cards, like with every drink recipe on it. And I'm flipping through this thing and this damn drink wasn't in there. And I'm like, hell, so I grab the phone, I run in the back, I call my brother, he walks me through it, I go back out. And I learned to be able to just, I guess, work on the fly, ad lib, pretend, put on a facade, and not let people see that I really didn't know what the hell I was talking about or doing. And ultimately I was able to gain confidence through that just with the experience.
Amazing. No, that's great. I think that's some great tips. And you were resourceful. You were as resourceful as you could be to get to where you needed to be. I love that. The restaurant and bar, the one in 03 in Baltimore, then the one in Lancaster that you sold in 2015. You said in installments. Can you give me a little bit more of a breakdown? Like why not just sell it outright? And what does that look like? Are you cash flowing as a result of those installments? What does that look like for you?
So we sold an installment sale specifically because the gentleman the purchasing entity didn't have any sort of, I won't say track record. They owned another pizza restaurant, but they were unable to get the financing they needed lined up without being in and establishing the sales history that they needed. So for that reason, we created, and thankfully our mortgage is with a local lender, and they were okay with us doing basically a lease purchase with this other group. But we sold the liquor license, which was kind of their down money, tied it to the restaurant so that if they ever defaulted, it would revert back to us. And then we basically broke it into real estate, the business and goodwill, and then the liquor license, compiled our price. And then we financed 95% of it with, we set up a balloon for 5 years, which they ended up needing to extend. At this point, we've got a ridiculous amount of equity in the real estate, and basically a notes receivable that shows up on our personal financial, which is pretty strong. That is still the balance they owe on everything. At this point, we're allocating as much of their payments towards us to paying down our principal mortgage. We still had a mortgage in place on the real estate. So that way, when they come and clean everything up, the windfall is going to be much greater for us.
I love it, man. Anything you would do differently? Anything, knowing what you know now in structuring this transaction, that you would do differently, or do you feel like, wow, actually, we kind of nailed it?
No, I actually am. I was a little upset that we had to extend, but when I look at things and really stretch out the paper on it all, we're gaining a hell of a lot more in interest than we would have had we sold it outright. So, it's going to end up being a more profitable situation. And obviously, not being a tax expert, I think it's helping a little bit with our gain perspective too.
Makes sense. Can you on that? Because when you talk about the timelines, I feel like COVID was a factor in some of this, I would guess, as far as extending, or no, was COVID not really a reason why they needed the extension? It was something else.
Yeah, something else.
Gotcha. What do you see? Because it's funny, you said 86'd her job. I'm like, yeah, this is a restaurant guy. I have restaurant roots as well. Like, way back when, managed a Ruby Tuesday. 86ing was what we did with everything that people didn't want. Right? 86 the lettuce, 86 this, 86 that. Today's restaurant industry is suffering, and some of it is a bit unexplainable in my opinion, unless maybe you have some insights here. I mean, we're in December of 2021 as we record this. From what I understand, Many of the unemployment enhanced benefits of it expired, but restaurants still in my town and a lot of places, are on limited hours, can't get good staff. People don't want to work there. And you talked about, man, it's a grind. I mean, working in a restaurant is no joke. It's the greatest, in my opinion, when you're, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. It's the greatest, education on hard work you can get outside of like, breaking rocks somewhere. It's hard, mentally and physically exhaustive work. Is that it? Is it just that the restaurant industry was due for people to run away from it at some point and, COVID kind of provided an excuse, or is there something more at play? Do you have any insight? I'm kind of curious, just having the history you do. Any insights on why the restaurant industry is suffering so much today?
I feel like, at least from our perspective, when we were relying on a good chunk of our employees were millennials, and that's just they were the easiest and most flexible with their schedules. The pay was good enough. They love the restaurant scene. And I mean, it literally becomes almost like a culture, how it is. It's everybody knows everybody in the restaurant industry. If you're not working, you're probably out at a restaurant or bar hopping or whatever. And I think in my opinion, technology has done amazing things. And I think it's provided a level of resources where these people are, and when I say these people, the younger generations that are coming up that would have been perfect for, our employment or our payroll, are really starting to see other avenues and ways that they can make money. And they're learning the ability to trade less time, but gain more money. And they're figuring out ways to do that more efficiently and quicker, or just looking for jobs that will not require the amount of labor that's involved with a restaurant. And I just feel, I remember being in the kitchen, and I didn't go to college. I basically went right from high school to working in the restaurant and the bar. I learned what I learned from either what was on television behind me, what the patrons were talking about, or being in the kitchen where there's kids 10, 15 years younger than me that know more about geopolitical conversations pieces than I could have ever meant or imagined. And I just remember thinking, how the hell do you know so much? And they'd always be like, well, I read it online. I did this, I did that. And I'm just like, holy smokes. So I just feel like there's a shift to wanting to work less and gain more money. And they're almost putting their foot down and saying, no, it's not worth it for me anymore.
So in some way, no, it's great. Again, it's all theory, but so I get that. Not holding you to like that's the answer. Dave Garpstas said it right here. That's the answer. That's why the restaurant industry is suffering. But it's you talk about technology evolving past maybe skill sets, and that's what your father experienced. It seems like what you just described is sort of similar in the restaurant industry. Technology being what it is, it's allowing for a much more efficient way to earn money, so you don't have to work in a restaurant. But we all love going to them still, right? They're not going anywhere. So what's the fix? What's the solution? How do restaurants, revive the same sort of workforce that they used to have, or whatever they need, or is it just a different way of doing business? What do you think is if you were consulting with a restaurant owner, what would you say the next thing they should do is?
Probably create some sort of boutique feel. I mean, anywhere around us that is not your cookie cutter chain type offering didn't suffer at all and does really well. And I think that's part of the reason why, like the people who took over our place, they actually thrived during COVID, which was kind of surprising, doing everything carry out and delivery. It's that experience when you go out. That's not like anything else. And I think that is what will keep people coming through your doors, good times, bad times, future times, whatever it may be. We were just away on vacation, and similar situation, you go away and there's a handful of restaurants not open for indoor seating, carry out only, but then you go to the places that were like mom and pop shops that everybody just kind of gravitated towards because they provided a really unique experience, packed, waiting list to get in. So I think that has a lot to do with it, is just creating a unique experience, whether it's through your food, whether it's through your atmosphere, whether it's through offering some sort of, mixed media with games, whatever. Like, I just think that has a lot to do with it. And I feel like with that, and maybe it's just a mom and pop type thing, you get that relationship with the employee where they actually feel like they're a part of something bigger rather than just, a paycheck and a number.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're creating, I guess it is what today is. Think about GoBundance and what we do with GoBundance. I mean, the world is developed into communities. The online has created the ability to do that, right? I've said this before, like there's a great comedic bit. If you love dressing like a baby, you can find 500 people down at the Holiday Inn doing a conference on dressing like a baby, right? Like the internet brings the world way closer. So it's the same thing. People want to feel connected to a community of like-minded people. If they're in a happening, well-run, cultured organization of a restaurant, a local mom and pop that's just got this great feel to it, yeah, you want to go patronize it as an employee, as a customer, but the employee also loves to be part of that. It sounds like, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Interesting. Well, we've said you have solved the restaurant's problems today, right here, single-handedly.
There you go. And it was well worth this talk.
That's it. That's all it's about. All right. I want to go back to 106 units in, what was it, 18 months?
Yeah.
All right. Leverage, you talked about using other people's money. Can you give us, for people listening and saying, okay, I got a duplex. In 18 months, you're telling me I can have 104 more units. Other people's money, okay. But how, who? Give me kind of the first 3-4 steps, or just some things that you put in place in order to scale that quickly.
So it really came down to two things. One was changing my perception of what private money and hard money was. I was always of the mindset that it just was a dirty term. And when I say dirty term, like it just seemed risky, and that there was too many.
Right?
Yeah, one is. So I changed my relationship with hard money. And then second was I opened my eyes to syndication. I've always been the person that I just need a little bit of information. And if I get keyed on to something, I take it and I run with it. And I went to a conference with local guy. He ran a meetup, and they had one talk. They talked about raising money, syndication, putting larger deals together. And I was like, that's it. That's my ticket. Because I always loved multifamily. I love the larger spaces. I love all the different levers that can be pulled. I just didn't fully know how I could get there. And after I went to that conference, I was like, done. And so those were really the two things that changed. Had a couple opportunities fall into my lap through conversation. You know, I worked out. I was working out in the field and had a pretty, what I consider larger. I mean, it was my largest purchase to date, or not to date. It was the largest purchase at the time, with 44 units spread over a handful of buildings in a really up and coming location in our city. And I was negotiating a deal with a client I was representing as the buyer, and they just couldn't come to terms. And this was after we had already started buying some single families, we had done a couple flips. And I was like, I had already heard about the syndication thing. And I was like, enough sitting on the sidelines, enough finding the next buyer. Like, we need to be the buyer. So I sat down, and we were very, very fortunate to, throughout our real estate investing career, through our first single family properties, we had the ability to partner with an individual who has been absolute blessing to our LLC. He's provided a number of things. He provided a ton of wisdom. He's been investing since the late 70s. He's got bankability, which is huge, absolutely huge, but just support. You know, he's all about helping us get to where we want to go. So I talked with him and our other partner, and they're like, let's put it together. So we just threw it under contract without really having a plan. I had already underwritten the deal just so I could pass along to my clients and whatnot. So I knew that there was enough meat on the bone, and I knew what was going on in the area. So I was like, we're going to take advantage of this. I will find the money. I will put it together. There's enough people out there that want to throw cash in the deal. So that's what we ended up doing. So that ended up leading to a couple other syndications. We had 2 other syndications we did. And then everything else was through essentially the Burr method, using private or hard money, finding houses that we linked up with a wholesaler locally who brought us a ton of value. He was new to the Lancaster market, didn't know anybody. He brought me an opportunity. We closed on it quickly. He's like, look, I'll just keep bringing you stuff, and if you don't want it, you want to find somebody, that's great. So we kind of cut him off at the pass and got a ton of inventory for him. So everything we buy from him is the short-term rental arm of what we do, and then large multifamily is everything else we do. But it was all through syndication and using hard money.
What's going on, everybody? It's Jamie. I'm jumping in real quick here because some people are listening to this podcast thinking, man, I hear this guest, I hear what they're talking about. This whole GoBundance thing sounds pretty cool. I'd love to be a part of that. And I would say to you, if you are qualified to be part of GoBundance, you're a millionaire or accredited at the very least, Jump on to GoBundance.com and just put your application in. You'll get on a call. It might even be with me where we can talk about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, and what it is to be part of this community in depth. Would love to have a conversation with you about that. It's been just so life-changing for me. And for those of you out there that are saying, yeah, sounds great, I would if I were a millionaire or if I were accredited, but I'm not there yet. We've got that now. We've built a program and I run it. I love being a part of it. I left my job for it, called Emerge and Ascend. Emerge is where you got to start. It's a 12-week intensive sprint goal setting course. You're going to get curriculum every week. You're going to get live intervention every week. You're going to get connection with GoBundance members every week. You're going to get accountability from like-minded people every week. Jump into that, kill it, and we invite you to Ascend, which is essentially the GoBundance mastermind without the $1 million requirement. And we actually even add in coaching to help folks find their purpose, their mission, their values. It's intense. It's everything all wrapped in one. So again, if you're a millionaire or you're at least accredited and you're wondering about this GoBundance thing and that shouldn't I, just apply. Throw your name in. You lose nothing. All you do is put your name into an application form, you get on a phone call, and then you decide. If you're not yet at that $1 million mark, look at Emerge, GoBundance.com/emerge. And what you can do as well is drop my name in there, Jamie, Jamie, and we'll knock $200 off the tuition for Emerge. Jump in there and we'll get you started on your journey toward being a whole life millionaire, toward getting to GoBundance, whatever you want. People in Emerge, people in Ascend, people in GoBundance all report back often the changes it's made in their lives financially, relationally, and everywhere else. So go to GoBundance.com, check all of that out. See wherever you are, dive into that particular area of GoBundance, and we'd love to see you inside of the tribe. Now, back to our show. Amazing. You talked about changing your relationship with hard money. What do you mean by that?
Well, in the first brokerage I worked at, I'm learning the rules of the road. I'm learning, all the ins and outs of investments. And there was a guy, and I won't use any names, obviously, because nobody would know who the hell he is anyways, but he was always buying properties. And I was talking to our broker at the time, and he's like, hey, that guy doesn't have any money. And I'm like, well, he provided a proof of funds. He's got the capability to purchase. That's not his money. That's just hard money. That's no good. And I was just like, all right, I didn't know any better. So I had just assumed that it was a terrible, terrible thing. And then I started doing some research on it and saw that, there's ridiculously high interest rates. Like, who would pay that? Why wouldn't you just go to a bank? And then after we bought our first property, it's like, you listen to all these podcasts, you read all these books, you reverse engineer the numbers. You're like, here's my financial freedom number. I'm going to have to go through, and holy hell, that's a lot of doors. And that's a lot of freaking money to save up. So I was talking to another investor, and he's like, I don't use any of my own money. He goes, I could, I just don't. He goes, I use hard money for everything. And I was like, all right, well, maybe that's something. So then we decided to take a chance on a tiny little house. And, it was what I would consider a home run of how the process worked, but it was enough to whet our appetite and be like, all right, as long as we underwrite it correctly, we're conservative on back end value, like, we'll do this all day long. We just will, as long as the opportunity presents itself. So that's just really what we've done.
Amazing. It's funny, the concept of leverage. A guy that's in GoBundance, a buddy of mine who joined recently, had a couple of conversations, ended up figuring out, a little bit more about how powerful leverage can be. And it unlocked like 50,000 in cash flow for him, right? Like just under 50,000 in cash flow for him. Not bad for a $10,000 investment in a community, right? But it was that proximity that taught him that, to your point. Like, you got around somebody who maybe taught you a different way and had to change your relationship with it. That's really, really cool. Your partner that you said is in the LLC, a blessing to the LLC. If you don't mind me asking, how do you structure the partnership? Is it a 50-50 split? Does he get a certain percentage of everything? What does that look like?
So we have, there's a third partner. So we're just divided by a third each.
Got it. So third. Nice and easy.
Yeah. And then our LLC, our entity, acts as a sponsor or a partner in the larger deals. The first deal that I mentioned, that was the largest that we had done at the time. We're the sole sponsor of that, but then some of the other ones, I brought the deal together. Somebody brought me the deal. I helped put it together and helped do the fundraising for it. So, and we got equity that way through our LLC. And then again, that gets watered down to the partners. So.
Got it. You came to this whole GoBundance thing through Emerge, which is intended to be for, the future millionaire. When you joined, were you a millionaire? Did you know you were a millionaire? Were you qualified for GoBundance? Tell me a little bit about Emerge. And then you ended up going into Ascend, which, if you graduate Emerge, for those that don't know, you go into Ascend. You did both. Talk to me about that story that, before you joined GoBundance, going through Emerge, Ascend, and all of the little ins and outs of it, if you don't mind.
So joining Emerge, well, first and foremost, not to stroke your ego at all, but
Well, let me hear it. Let me hear it.
I I listened to a podcast, and I think you were on Mike Ayala's podcast. I don't remember if it was that one or anyway, you've been on a bunch, but
I've been on a bunch, yeah.
you had introed this whole thought and this program that you were releasing called Emerge. And I was like, man, I've always heard about this GoBundance thing, through Bigger Pockets. I always hear these guys talking about it. And it became this white whale of a thing that I don't know why, but I want to be part of it. I hear that it's great, but for no other reason than everybody else who's cool is talking about it, I want to do it. So I had no idea. I've done personal financials before, but had no idea. So essentially, after hearing your podcast, went on, did some research, signed up for Emerge, and after doing my first personal financial, after joining the group, realized that I could have qualified. I was just over the million mark at that point. But honestly, the number on paper didn't mean anything, because I did not feel like, even though I had the financial qualifications, like, who the hell am I to be in this room with these people? I just didn't feel deserving. And to this day, I was talking to you pre-recording, like, I still don't feel like I belong, and it's not for any reason that anybody in the group makes you feel. I mean, everybody makes you feel like you belong here and you should have been here all along, which is awesome. It's just this probably this internal relationship with money, this internal confidence, this internal thermostat we talk about. I think that that's one thing that is limiting with me still, that I'm figuring out ways to break down. But I honestly can't thank you enough, man, for basically bringing this opportunity, because had you not done Emerge and the Ascend program, I wouldn't have even known that I could have qualified. Maybe eventually I would have, but it opened my eyes to it all. And it, even when we scheduled this call, and your mind starts spinning, like, I've listened to his podcast. What's he going to ask me about? I started asking myself so many questions that I was like, wow, that's how I would answer it. But like, I have done so much internal reflection and learning about myself that I can't thank you enough, man. I mean, it's,
Oh, wow.
I won't get emotional on you, but it's been a blessing. It truly
Man,
has.
that I was not expecting to. Thank you. That means a ton to me, because again, the whole process of Emerge, Ascend, all of what it was like a light switch for me late 2020 when we put it together, and okay, this is cool. I'm really enjoying this process. And then once it was kind of fully baked and we launched it officially at the beginning of 2021, that was like the first group went through and graduated, and they were saying, man, I got so much value out of this. And it was like, ooh, this feels good. It's time to leave. That's when I decided to leave my job, to dedicate really to dedicate myself to what I feel my purpose is, which is to inspire and motivate others to live their best life. And I'm able to do that through Emerge. I hope and think, and thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what the intent is to have the experience you had for all these folks. So I take it like, when somebody has an issue or didn't like something, I take it so personally.
Yeah.
It hits me like, oh, it's terrible. I suck. I'm a terrible person. But so you go through Emerge, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't do that, like, kind of one sheet personal financial. They don't really know where they stand. It's funny. We've had a few guys like, oh crap, I did my one sheet and I realized I'm a millionaire, and they jump into GoBundance. But you jump to Ascend next, which, again, for those that don't know, is sort of GoBundance without the $1 million requirement. After you graduate Emerge, you go there. Why go to Ascend? Well, I guess you kind of explain talk a little bit more about why go to Ascend, and what did you get from Ascend that made you finally say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go do this GoBundance thing.
From Ascend, I think making the decision to jump into Ascend was really a no-brainer for me, just because, again, there was a lot of internal stuff that I felt like I just needed to spend more time around people that were like-minded to grow and just gain some more experience under my belt. I had never been part of a mastermind before. And obviously, to be able to be a part of something that is considered one of the best masterminds out there was amazing. But I just felt like there was a lot of internal growth I still needed to experience before. I view GoBundance as a number of things, but GoBundance to me is more of, am I going to be worthy enough not to be in the room because of my qualifications, but am I worthy enough to offer what I need to be able to offer to the other individuals in the group, that they'll find value in me? Maybe on paper, yeah, I'm there, but if somebody from whatever pod or whatever region needs a guy, like, do I have what it takes? Am I confident enough in myself to be that guy that can provide value to them? And I just didn't feel like I was there yet. Through Ascend, and working, when you put us into pods, I really started, as I hear myself talk about stuff, I really start to understand that I guess I do have some experience with some real estate stuff. And honestly, maybe not everybody in GoBundance has, the experience and some of the track record that I've had doing some of the stuff I had. So through those conversations, through Ascend that we had, that started to open my eyes on, like, you know what, you are ready. And I had reached out to you just to kind of get your perspective, and you're like, you live once, man, get into the biggest room you can. So that's how I ended up.
I love it, man. I love it. So now that you're in GoBundance, it's been what, 4 or 5 months now? 3, 4 months?
August, yeah. So 4 months on
4
my
months.
fourth
Okay.
month.
It sounds like still it's sort of like there's still that like imposter syndrome or whatever kind of keeps popping up. Where are you today with that? Are you feeling like that sense of belonging, or is it still a little bit like, man, I don't know. I don't know how much I belong in this room sometimes. Does that still go through you?
No, well, I can't say never. My pod is awesome. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't be happier with my pod. They're a great group of dudes. Like, I truly am blessed. No, I'm starting to gain more confidence that I do belong there. And again, it was never for any reason that anybody, either on podcasts or
No.
conversations or the thing, they never made me feel like that. That was all internal stuff. So I definitely am warming up a lot, and I couldn't be happier with it, man. I really couldn't.
I've shared before, my first almost year, I was intimidated the entire time. I was like, all right, like you, I put myself here. I reached out of my comfort zone, get in the biggest room. All the advice I got from other people, I did. But then it was just like you said, I heard all the things that made me feel small, like talking about buying planes or people earning my net worth in 6 months, like they're earning my net worth in income in 6 months. Like it was just, holy cow, who are these people and do I belong here? And what I've learned over time, two things really. One is the best way to overcome that is intimacy with others. And I mean, what I mean by that is dive into the pod. It's small, it's tight. You get to know these guys tremendously, but a level above that is get in person, whether it's with your pod, schedule a trip, or get to an event. Once you're in person, it's like, okay, humans. We're all just humans. We're all trying to do different things. That's one. The second thing, and maybe of equal or more importance, is there are 6 pillars in GoBundance, right? You have authentic relationships, bucket list adventures, genuine contribution, horizontal income, extreme accountability, and the sixth one, which I can't remember right now. Authentic relationships, maybe whatever one I didn't say. Age-defying health, that's the one. So you have these 6 pillars, right? But there's a net worth minimum. So financial feels like it's sort of at the top and the rest are subordinate to it. But the thing that I learned by getting in person with my pod is the guys that have more financial success than me, they may have a struggle in a relationship area or with contribution or ideas around health or whatever it might be. And I'm not saying I'm the expert in all of those things, but I can add value in that way to them, and they value that equal to the financial, right? Like these pillars are even. There's not one better than the other. It's not financial first, but it feels that way because of the minimum net worth requirement, the accreditation requirement. So that's the other part is like, once you understand, like, I can add value and I can contribute in any garden. I can just hold somebody accountable. Like just texting a guy who says, yeah, I got to get my fat ass out of bed at 5 a.m. every day, who's worth 200 million. That's adding value to that guy. Hey, man, just checking in on you. Let's get up. Let's go. Like, you don't have to be in shape yourself. Just send a text to somebody who wants to get up at 5 a.m. if you happen to be up at 5 a.m. Or if you're on the East Coast at 8 a.m. and he's on the West Coast and it's 5 a.m. for him. Easy text to send, right? You can add value in any possible way to these guys. It does not take heaps of like, I'm going to connect you to the most epic baller ever. That's not what it requires. It's just be an ear for somebody. Send them that morning text to help them out. Give them a call when you think of something that made you think of them. Just things like that across any garden, across any pillar, to me are what make the difference between feeling that sense of belonging and like you're getting momentum in a community like a GoBundance, and that thing that you and I felt at the beginning, that imposter syndrome, that sense of I'm not here. So that's my advice. That's my thoughts for anyone out there, for you, if you're still at all suffering with this. But those were my learnings in the 3 years almost that I've been in GoBundance. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure. All right, let's do this. We're running short on time. I want to do a quick run through a couple of pillars of the one sheet, and then we'll dive into the final question from the GoBundance card game. Let's start with horizontal income. We'll do this lightning round style. What is horizontal income yearly, and how many lines is that currently?
Horizontal year to date, $58,780. 6 lines, soon to establish more, but that's 6 lines. You just want me to keep rolling down?
No. Let's get what percentage are you right now? What's your financial freedom percentage?
25.
25. All right. Are you baking in? I'm curious what guys do. Is that like 25% of the way to having my base expenses covered? Or is that like, no, that's me living the big life, going to Italy for 2 months. Like that's 25% of the way to me living is in any possible way that I want. Where do you put your expense goal?
That's just covering expenses.
Gotcha. Get you to being able to be free. You don't need to work at that point. Got it.
Right.
Makes sense. That's what I do as well. Okay. Let's jump over to age defying health. How much is your body weight and your body fat percentage?
165 pounds, 14% body fat.
Damn, dude. Lean. On this topic, you were an MMA fighter.
Loosely put, yeah.
What is that loosely put? Did you or did you not fight in an MMA fight?
I competed in 2 fights, yeah, but it was more, like I said, I need to know a little bit of information and I go all in. I trained in martial arts, a number of different things for about 13 years total, I guess. But my trainer was always like, you should fight. And I was like, and I'm the kind of guy that if I hit somebody, I'd pick them back up. You all right? Like, that's just, I don't have a competitive bone in my body other than with myself. Like, I used to throw packs on my back and would just go out and run for miles and miles and miles because I love torture. I ran 2012, or 13, I ran across the state of PA. It started out, it was supposed to be individually, and then I was running with a broken foot by like day 4, so we relayed the rest of the way, but it was like 270 some miles. But because I love that stuff. But yeah, so my trainer's like, you should fight. And I was like, no. And he's like, you should. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. So I did it, lost the first one. Terrible. I gave up my back. It was just, I was so starstruck being in this freaking octagon and lights and people. And I told you they mispronounced my name when I got introed. And that was like completely took the wind out of my sails, like terrible. But then I was like, all right, well, I'll get back into it. And then I did it again. And man, it's like you put yourself in that environment and everything that I trained that was like muscle memory, gone. Yeah. And it was a sloppy fight, but yeah, I fought twice.
There you go. Yeah. Garpstas. Yeah. Garpstas. Yeah, well, Dave Garpstas. Yeah.
Been called much worse, man. Been called much worse.
You got a little David Goggins in you too, huh? With this self-torture. You like kind of putting yourself through the ringer?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's just, I think it's internal competition that I just like to appease to. I don't know.
Gotcha. All right. Talk about family, wife, kids. You're married. How many kids now?
4 kids.
4 kids. What are the age ranges?
8, 6, 3.5, and 8 months.
Wow. Done or more to come?
We were done at 2, then we were done at 3. We say we're done at 4. So honestly, man, we've been living our life and it's in God's hands. It's children are a blessing. I mean, we started homeschool this year, so it's been a little bit of a challenge, but no, I mean, we're truly blessed. So I won't say done until no more kids come out.
Gotcha. Yeah. 8 months, man. Congrats. That's very, very new. COVID baby. A lot of COVID babies, right? They're saying it's the next baby boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What about your life happiness index? What is that? And what category is ranking the lowest for you at this point?
Life happiness is a whopping 3.8.
3.8. Okay. Yeah. This is like therapy is needed here. What's dragging that down?
Well, honestly, I can tell you the only thing that I focus on are family and work at this point, and then my health is okay. But outside of that, every other thing pretty much struck zeros. No adventure, no hobbies. Like I don't do anything outside of work and family. And that's the first call I had with my new pod. They're like, we need to get you out to do like a guy's trip or something. I don't do anything anymore. I just don't. So
is it something that you want to do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I was gonna say, because I've kind of come around on this. I forget who told me, and I mentioned this on the podcast before, but like music and dance, for instance, like, for some guys, it's like, I'm completely fine not having music and dance. I'm like, in fact, I'm happy. I don't want to dance. Right. So
yeah, you can take that one out for me. I don't need that.
Well, so I say that's a 10 then, or 9 or whatever. Like, yeah, it's right where I want to be. I'm happy in the music and dance department. Right. But if you're saying, hey, from an adventure standpoint, like, I want to go on a guy's trip. I want to get out a little bit more, then yeah, definitely rate that lower. But I get you. So you've got your numbers. Where are your numbers in the 3 or 4 core categories? Are they at 10s for you right now, or are they just like, where are they?
6s and 7s.
What's holding those back?
Maybe I'm just too hard on myself. Like I always feel that there's improvement everywhere. So
Sure.
I don't know. I would say that's probably I'm just
Osborne says can't be higher than a 9 because then you have nowhere to go. But I think you can have 10s for periods of time. It's a quarterly's one sheet, right? Like you can have a 10, like you just got married. That's a 10. It's a great quarter, right? Versus maybe the next quarter drops down a little bit, but that's just me. How about contribution? How do you like to contribute and in what way?
So not the best with contribution. Total contributions 16,000 year to date, and that's compilation of church giving. We give to a community called Unbound, and then a lot of that has to do with hours contributed. I sit on a board for a nonprofit called Impact Missions, and they help end homelessness in Lancaster County. And that's a few hours a week, and I've been spending some extra time trying to help grow the organization and try to get things to the next level. So and then I have like 3 or 4 different like junior investors that I'm kind of mentoring now that I spend probably 3 to 4 hours a week either on the phone or they stop up to the office and just kind of help them through their problems and just talk from experience. So
you are too hard on yourself. That is a lot of contribution financially, time, energy, all of that. That's pretty good. You're like, I don't do too great here. Like I would say the opposite as an observer. So for whatever that's worth. Your GoPod, what are you guys talking about right now?
Well, we actually just had a call Tuesday. We brought the wives on the call. So we thought
nice.
that was super, super cool. A couple of the wives just were kind of curious what we talk about and what this GoBundance thing was. I think 2 of them, my wife and maybe 1 or 2 other wives, are actually in the Go Wives thing, so they had some familiarity to it. But yeah, we just brought them on. Brett in our group, he kind of led the discussion and gave us some really good questions. And then one of the guys in my pod asked the wives what they wanted us to hold each other accountable for, like the one thing. So most wives want the consistent date nights and those kind of things. So that was a really interesting call.
That's awesome. I haven't heard anybody talk about doing that. That's all. I'm sure maybe others have, but that's the first time somebody's talked about that. That's a great idea.
It was super cool. We were really happy we did it.
Yeah. It exposes, like you said, it's not just some boys club. You guys are actually, doing things to make each other better, which is great. How about adventure? You talked about not having enough. Are you going to Park City?
Yeah, that's the plan. I haven't booked a ticket yet. I was trying to get clarification, and probably not for the podcast, but just details with vaccination requirements and things. But that's neither here nor there. I need to book the ticket. I will book the ticket.
Yeah. They're selling out. They're getting close to kind of the max there. So be careful about that. But for sure, if you need anything, let me know. I can connect you with whoever you need to. So, all right, let's wrap it up with a question from the GoBundance card game, the lovely 5 of clubs. What is something you are looking forward to celebrating in the future?
Well, this year I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary for kidney donation, which was awesome. I'm looking to be able to continue doing that, hopefully successfully, with the recipient over many more years to come.
You donated a kidney?
Yeah, back in 2020, midst of COVID. It was pretty crazy. It was a good time.
You to who? Like, I'm not the person, but like a relative, a friend, somebody. Yeah.
The gentleman I met through real estate, he worked in our office for a hot minute, and young guy, younger than I am, and just was feeling. I don't go on Facebook, and my mother-in-law was like, "Did you hear what's going on with him?" He left the office, went for work for another brokerage, and she told me he was in need of a kidney. And at that time, I didn't even know what my blood type was, but I was driving in the car. I still remember what I was wearing, where I was driving, what time of day it was, and I had this crazy sensation. Chills came over my body, and a clear image of me in a hospital room with him. And I was like, I'm donating my kidney. And so I pull into the parking lot at the grocery store, get on the phone with my wife, and she was calling me about, I don't know, something random. And I said, how would you feel if I donated my kidney? She's like, what? And I was like, yeah. I said, I don't even know if I'm a match, but I've always felt like, this is probably going off on a tangent, but I feel like if it would be like you saying, Dave, my car broke down, I need help. And I had an extra car, but all I said was, I'll say a prayer for Jamie that he gets his situation figured out, when I could have given you the car. I felt like me just saying prayers and hoping that this guy was going to be okay was not enough if I was a viable option for him. So I decided to pursue testing. I learned more about my body that day than, well, through the months of testing than I probably ever needed to know. I pissed in more containers walked around with a gas container for days at a time. Just anytime you have to go to the bathroom, that's your John. But ended up finding out I was an identical match for the gentleman. And it was just, it hurt. I'm not going to lie. It freaking hurt bad.
Yeah.
But it was the most rewarding and fulfilling experience I've ever been a part of.
You a moment ago, just to be clear here, to remind the listeners, said you're not sure you're doing so great in the contribution garden. You've given a kidney to somebody.
Yeah, but that's what I was supposed to do.
I get it. But my point is contribution seems to be part and parcel of your being, of who you are. Like you are a giver. And man, talk about look, no one's calling you Dave Garpstat in GoBundance anymore. You will be known as Gabe Garpstas after this interview, dude. This was killer, man. All right. We're at the end of the time. I want to honor your time. How do people get a hold of you? How do people reach out to you? What's the best way? Where do you want to direct folks?
Honestly, I'm on Facebook. I don't go on it too terribly much. Gmail, dgarpstas@gmail.com, or my cell 717-208-0253.
Man,
I'd love to link up with anybody.
This has been a total pleasure. I cannot wait to hug and meet you in Park City, man. Wow. This is, I'll be honest with you, one of those interviews where I know you're a GoBundance guy. I know you've done some good stuff, but the layers and layers that you just went through, ending with this, oh, by the way, I gave up one of my organs to somebody to help them. Wow. This was incredible. I want to thank you for the time today because you inspired me to just, I don't know, do more with my life today, man. Damn. Unbelievable. Thank you for that. And yeah, I'll see you in Park City.
Jamie, can't thank you enough for all you've done, man. Changed my life.
All right, bro. Thank you for that. We'll talk soon.
All right. See you, bud. Bye.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know down in the comments and make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can be informed on the next episode and other content right here on this channel. Thank you.